It is July in the year 1187, and you are standing right in the middle of a just absolutely brutal, rocky desert.
Yeah, the heat is incredible.
Oh, it's hovering well over 100 degrees. The air is thick with dust. And, right in front of you is arguably the most terrifying fighting force in the medieval world.
Right, the Crusaders.
Exactly. Thousands of them, completely encased in heavy steel armor, riding these just massive war horses. But the thing is, you aren't panicking. You aren't ordering a retreat. Because your commander, a guy named Salahuddin, is about to use the sun itself as a weapon.
Which is just one of the most stunning moments in military history. I mean, truly.
It really is. So welcome to today's deep dive. We have this massive stack of sources today. Chronicles, tactical analyses, historical accounts of the Crusades. And we are using them to build this really profound what-if scenario.
Right. Our mission today is basically lifting you out of your ordinary life, dropping you straight into the 12th century, and putting you right next to Salahuddin al-Ayyubi, who is widely known in the West as Saladin.
Yeah, and you are waking up as his top general.
Which is an intense job.
Oh, absolutely. And what becomes immediately clear from diving into all these sources is that surviving in that role, let alone actually succeeding, it required so much more than just, knowing how to swing a sword or ride a horse.
Right. It wasn't just battlefield stuff.
No, it was an absolute masterclass in high-stakes politics, psychological warfare, religious faith, and a level of chivalry that honestly shocked the entire world.
Yeah, and to really understand the immense pressure you'd be under as his general, we first have to grasp the sheer scale of the empire you're dealing with.
Because it's huge.
Exactly. So Galahuddin was actually born into a Kurdish military family, but through just pure strategic genius, he rose to become the first sultan of both Egypt and Syria.
Wow.
Yeah, he founded what we call the Ayyubid dynasty.
Hmm.
And his realm literally altered the map of the Middle East. At its height, as his right-hand commander, you were helping to govern an area that stretches across Egypt, Syria, Upper Mesopotamia.
Which is a massive footprint.
Oh, yeah. Down into Yemen and even parts of Nubia, which is like modern-day southern Egypt and northern Sudan.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because I'm looking at these sources, and the PR image of Salahuddin in the West is this towering, mythical warrior king, right? Just constantly clashing with crusaders.
Right, that's the stereotype.
Yeah. But if I'm waking up in his camp on just a random Tuesday in the early 1180s, what is my actual day-to-day reality? Like, am I just charging into battle every morning against the Knights Templar?
No, not at all. Actually, if you look at the timeline, the Crusaders have held the holy city of Jerusalem almost 90 years at this point.
Which is a long time.
Exactly. But your primary focus isn't even on them yet. The first and really the hardest battle Salahuddin fought wasn't against the Christians. It was against other Muslims.
Wait, really?
Yeah, absolutely. Before you can launch a massive campaign to retake Jerusalem, you have to secure your own backyard. Salahuddin's initial monumental achievement was unifying the Muslim Near East all the way from Egypt to Arabia.
Ah, okay. Because if you march on the Crusaders with a divided home front.
You get stabbed in the back the second your army leaves town.
Wow, okay. That makes sense. It sounds like being his general is less like playing chess and more like being a campaign manager in a highly fractured political primary.
Yeah.
You can't win the general election against the Crusaders if you don't unite your own party first.
That is actually a perfect way to look at it. The Near East was super fractured. You had remnants of old dynasties, independent warlords, rival cities. So your job involves this really tricky dance of shifting alliances.
So a lot of talking, not a lot of fighting.
Exactly. You're negotiating with different emirs, convincing them to join the cause rather than just fighting each other. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this blend of statesmanship and warfare is really what set the foundation for his legendary empire.
And the sources describe him in a really interesting way, right? Not like this giant brute.
Right. He's described as a relatively short man. He had a trim black beard and very alert, perceptive black eyes. But he was famous for this profound generosity. He genuinely cared for his subjects.
Which means, as his general, you have to uphold that reputation.
Precisely. Failing in battle was bad, sure. But failing in your duty to the people, like being corrupt or cruel, that was considered much worse. You had to be the physical extension of his justice.
That is a lot of pressure. But obviously, once the Near East was unified, Salahuddin finally had the combined strength to face the Crusaders.
Right, the manpower and the economic backing.
Which brings us to the Battle of Hattin in 1187. This is really his tactical masterpiece.
Oh, without a doubt.
So we are facing this massive Crusader force, and this includes elite heavy armor units like the Knights Templar and the Hospitallers.
Yeah, these guys were basically tanks. Chainmail over thick padding, heavy helms, riding massive horses. A direct charge from them would just shatter an infantry line.
Wait, when we picture medieval warfare, we picture two massive walls of steel crashing into each other on a field. But you're saying the winning move here was essentially to avoid the fight and let the desert do the heavy lifting.
Exactly. That's the genius of it. Salahuddin uses intelligence and speed. He actually baits them into marching across a waterless plateau in the brutal July heat.
Which is basically a death sentence in that armor.
Completely.
Yeah.
And as his general, your job is to command the light horse archers. Your orders are to harass the Crusaders and cut them off from any water sources.
So we're just trapping them out there in the heat.
Yeah, and you're using a tactic called shower shooting.
Right. I read about this in the sources. How does that actually work?
So you don't just fire randomly. You establish a killing zone. Your archers ride in rapidly, loose a dense shower of arrows into the enemy flanks, and then immediately wheel their horses around and retreat.
Before the heavy knights can even try to charge.
Exactly. You just loop around, get more arrows, and do it again. You are bleeding them out and baking them at the same time.
And didn't they also set fires?
Yes, they set fire to the dry brush. So the Crusaders are dehydrated, exhausted, and now they're choking on smoke.
That is a nightmare.
It really is. And the trap finally springs at a geographical feature called the Horns of Hattin. The Crusaders are so desperate for water that they try to break through the lines.
They lose their tight formation.
Right, and that's when you use a classic encirclement tactic. The sun has essentially done the killing for you. The result is total annihilation of the Crusader field army.
It's just wild. And they capture the king of Jerusalem, Guy de Lusignan.
Yes, and they also capture the True Cross, which was this incredibly sacred Christian relic.
So by wiping out their army, the Holy Land is basically left completely defenseless.
Exactly, which leaves the ultimate prize, Jerusalem, wide open.
But taking the city presents a massive moral test, doesn't it?
Oh, a huge one, because the historical baggage here is just immense.
Right, because 90 years prior to this, the Crusaders captured Jerusalem and just slaughtered nearly all its Muslim inhabitants.
Yeah, the contemporary accounts are horrifying. It was a bloodbath. And that trauma was the emotional engine driving Salahuddin's entire campaign.
So now your army surrounds the city surrenders, Salahuddin has the power and, honestly, the historical justification for revenge.
Completely. In 12th century warfare, he had the right to sack the city.
But he chooses the exact opposite.
He forbids the typical slaughter. He shows this world-shocking level of chivalry.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me. It's easy to be merciful when you're winning, sitting in a tent, but to hold back your troops when they know exactly what the Crusaders did to their ancestors 90 years ago, how does a general enforce that kind of discipline?
Well, what's fascinating here is that it all comes back to his moral authority. The troops revere his piety. He makes it clear that this is a pursuit of justice, not just bloody conquest.
So he's saying, if we slaughter them, we're no better than they were.
Exactly. Though it's important to note, he wasn't just a complete pacifist.
Right, because he executes Reynold.
Yes, Reynold of Châtillon. He was a brutal warmonger who specifically targeted innocent merchants. Salahuddin personally made sure he was executed. But for the general populace of Jerusalem, he lets them buy their freedom for a very low price.
And for the people who couldn't afford it?
He and his brother released thousands of poor captives for free. They paid for it out of their own pockets.
Which is just incredible, and that totally redefined his legacy in the West.
Oh, absolutely. He was transformed from this terrifying foe into a literal paragon of virtue in European eyes.
But, of course, no good deed goes unpunished. Because his merciful capture of Jerusalem didn't end the war. It paradoxically triggered an entirely new one.
Right, it launched the Third Crusade.
And that brings Europe's greatest tactician to his doorstep.
King Richard the Lionheart. And this guy is a superb tactician. He has actively studied Salahuddin's playbook.
So he knows not to fall for the same traps they did at Hattin?
Exactly. Which brings us to the Battle of Arsuf in 1191. Richard refuses to break formation against the horse archers. His men just absorb the arrows, he protects his heavy cavalry, waits for the precise moment, and then unleashes them.
And it completely shatters Salahuddin's lines.
Yeah, it's the general's first Major tactical defeat.
So Richard the Lionheart forces us to completely change our game plan. It's almost like a heavyweight boxer realizing he can't win a slugfest in the center of the ring, so he immediately switches to guerrilla tactics to exhaust his opponent.
That is a brilliant analogy, because adaptability is really the true mark of genius here. Surviving Richard required abandoning his ego and totally changing his previous successful tactics.
So what does he do?
Scorched earth. A straight fight is impossible, so he switches to small raiding parties to break supply lines. He poisons wells, destroys crops, dismantles forts. He basically makes the Crusaders' lives impossible.
So when Richard tries to march on Jerusalem,
Salahuddin just refuses to fight on Richard's terms. He just uses logistical pressure. Richard realizes he can't hold the city even if he takes it, because he has no supplies.
wow, so neither side can claim a decisive victory.
Exactly. Which leads to the climax of all this, the Treaty of Ramla in 1192.
And what were the terms of that?
Jerusalem remains in Muslim hands, which is a massive win for Salahuddin, but it is kept officially open to Christian pilgrims.
Which is a very pragmatic, diplomatic solution. So what does this all mean? We started by asking what it would be like to wake up as Salahuddin's general. And I think waking up in that tent means realizing leadership isn't just about winning battles.
No, not at all.
It requires believing in a vision of unity, pursuing actual justice in a really brutal age, acting as a statesman to read political wins, and upholding a code of honor on and off the battlefield.
Yeah, and this raises an important question, I think. History usually carves the names of generals who win the bloodiest battles into stone. But considering Salahuddin's restraint at Jerusalem, how much more courage does it take to be remembered for the lives you chose not to take?
That's a profound point.
I mean, if you were holding the sword with all that history behind you, could you have stayed your hand?
That is an incredible thought to leave on. Thank you to everyone for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the history you read. Keep looking for the real human decisions behind these massive events. And, keep exploring. We'll catch you next time.